Welcome to the Double D Trailers podcast. Today we are discussing horse trailer maintenance. Fall is upon us, the cooler weather and sunshine, not as much rain and heat as we have to deal with through the summer months. So great time. Most of us either do spring trail riding or fall riding, and we like to set home in the depth of winter. And in summer, too. It's just often too hot. So it's good to take a step back before the riding season kicks in, or perhaps you're already in that, and just make sure that you have covered everything on your trailer to make sure that your trips are safe. And, another important thing is just the longevity of your trailer and the resale value of it. So all those things are come into play and should be taken into consideration for your maintenance program. I personally like to maintain 2 times per year. A lot of folks, they'll use the trailer for an entire year and then just once a year maybe do an inspection. But, for myself, during those winter months when the trailer's not in use, I like to see it waxed and underneath a cover to keep the sunlight and the elements and the snow, depending on what part of the country you're in, off of the exterior surfaces. And same thing in the summer months, when the sun's baking, the trailer's just sitting there deteriorating. It's really nice to have a cover over it. So they're on Amazon. You can buy a cover for a gooseneck for, I don't know, $300, and it's certainly well worth the investment. So let's jump in quickly with tires and brakes. It's a common topic, and we've touched on this a few times, but tires themselves rarely wear out. I see a lot of clients, they're looking at a used trailer, and the person that's selling the trailer, they'll advertise it, brand new tread on the tires, looks like it's never been used, and that type thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the tread. I mean, it does. You don't want to put 100,000 miles on them and run them until the wires are showing. But, most of us don't travel, 50,000 miles per year with our horse trailer. It's only a few thousand. So you can imagine by the time the tires actually do wear out, that many years have passed in most situations with the majority of clients. And for that reason, you really just want to look at the date code of your tire. That's the manufacturing date. If you don't know how to decipher that, which I didn't, just Google it, how to decipher date code on a tire, and it'll tell you the year and the month that tire was made. Now, keep in mind, a lot of tires are made overseas. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that, because the tire manufacturer will build specific to certain brands. For example, a Goodyear, if we're talking automotive tires, or a Firestone, a Chinese manufacturer or an overseas manufacturer would build it according to the spec that Goodyear or Firestone or whomever the brand is specified. You'll want to look at the date code, and it's actually of when the tire goes in service, not so much as when it was manufactured. So keep in mind, there's freight across the ocean. It'll probably sit in a warehouse for an extended period of time, then in a trailer factory until it's actually bolted on and goes to a dealer lot. And then at some point, it's put into use with the end user, and that's when the heat cycles begin. When you're using, running up and down the road, and the tire it's getting hot, and then it's cooling off, and then, that type thing. So that's what we're looking for. So it's not always an exact science to look at the date code. We do recommend changing tires every 5 years, and that way, your tires, they actually typically age out rather than wear out. And even though the tire looks good, over the years, the elements, the sunlight, the heat, the cold, it's just rubber, right? And rubber breaks down, the compounds break down. So you'll want to pay particular attention to how old the tires are. If it's a trailer that you've had for a while, many years since it was new and the tires have never been changed, definitely do that. You could save yourself a lot of headache versus being parked beside the road, with a blowout that has shredded the tire, shredded the fender, beat the sheet metal on the side of your trailer, and then you're trying to figure out how to change it. So new tires will certainly help prevent that, and always check those tire pressures. It's so important not to operate a tire that's overinflated or underinflated, because both can just cause excessive heat built up and weaken that sidewall, and eventually that's when the blowout is going to happen. As far as the running gear of the trailer, I always recommend taking your trailer to either a trailer repair shop. It doesn't have to be a horse trailer shop. I mean, utility trailers, flatbeds, cargo trailers, anybody that works on a trailer that has brakes and axles will be able to service the running gear for you. RV centers are fantastic if you can get on their schedule. Summertime's probably a good time to do that, even though it's past. But if you wait until fall, that's when everybody else waits as well to do their service work. So guess what? They're backed up and you can't get in. Early bird gets the worm, so to speak. So always be thinking ahead to try to get that schedule. But as far as the running gear, the service facility, the tech will pull the actual wheel. They'll inspect the brakes, the lining, the pads, the springs, the magnets, all of the components that make up those, generally an electric braking system. And you can also repack bearings. They can test that and just make sure that your running gear is ready, because what you don't want to have happen is a bearing go out. That's a pretty major repair, even more so than a tire. And I've actually seen bearings go out and then mess the spindle up, and the whole tire and wheel assembly has popped off of a trailer while in transit. So it does happen. Fall's a good time to deep clean your trailer before the rides are in full swing. If it's a trailer that has a wood floor or an aluminum floor with a rubber mat on top, definitely pull those mats back. Hose the trailer out if you haven't already. And make sure that you allow the floor to dry. If it's an aluminum floor, ideally you should be cleaning those not more frequent, because the horse urine and just the acidity associated with the horse waste, it can oxidize the aluminum, which is a white rust. I've seen aluminum floors before. I've traded for trailers and pulled the mats back, and I could see the ground. You could see daylight through the aluminum floor. Not an issue if you keep it clean, hosed off, allow it to dry, pull the mat back in. Life is good. I also like to see a coat of wax applied to the exterior sheets twice a year would be fantastic. Do it in the winter before your spring rides, do it over the summer before your fall rides. And that really helps protect your exterior paint from the sunlight. Unfortunately, sunlight is your friend for trail riding, but it is not your friend to your horse trailer. So it just really deteriorates it. So the more we can keep the exterior protected through wax and sealants, as well as the cover, the better. Check the structure of your trailer. Lay down underneath it. Look around at the welds and make sure that you don't see any welds that are broken, any cross members that have an issue, or perhaps rust has started, and just make sure that there's no issues there. When we look at lubrication, that's probably an area that, for whatever reason, a majority of folks are very slack on doing. But in my opinion, it's one of the more important things, particularly when it comes to user friendliness. And what I mean by that, there's so many rubber components and petroleum-based components that make up your trailer. If you have drop-down windows and sliding windows, every single one of those has rubber trim around the perimeter. Your doors have some sort of rubber, petroleum-based sealant, more than likely. There's just a lot in there. And so when it goes through the summertime, rubber is just like the skin on your body. When it gets hot, it's going to expand, and in the cold weather, it's going to retract and shrink. And the rubber sealants, the rubber gaskets around the perimeter, when they do that, they're going to move. So as they expand, they may pop out of the track. As they contract, it may not be doing its job. So make sure that you press all of those back in place on the rubber components before you do anything. But I like to lubricate any part on the trailer that moves. So if it's a drop-down window that has a hinge at the bottom, it has a door latch, it has a keyhole, perhaps even has a spring mechanism for the bars that fold down, often independent of the window itself. So the first thing I'm going to do just for that window is I'm going to grab some penetrating oil, aka WD-40 or whatever your brand is that you like, and I'm going to spray the hinge at the bottom. I'm going to spray down into the door latch and the striker plate and just make sure it gets nice and saturated on those parts. And for the keyhole, I'm going to take a jar of Vaseline and dip the key right into the jar of Vaseline and work it in and out of the keyhole itself. So just dip the key in the Vaseline, work it in and out, and lubrication is definitely your friend. And that's just what I would do on a drop-down window. If it's a back door, some hinges have grease zerks. You grab a grease gun. If you don't have one, go to Walmart and buy one. They're not expensive. But it's so important because corrosion can get inside of those hinges just from the condensation from the atmosphere. There's a lot of moisture in the air. So condensation can build on the inside. It can begin to cause corrosion. If it's inside of a hinge, you can't really see it. And if you don't grease it, eventually that hinge is just going to seize up, and then you've got more problems. So grease the hinges. If they don't have a zerk, spray the heck out of them with the penetrating oil, the WD-40. Most back doors are going to have some sort of rotating style cam latch, perhaps a lock mechanism. Again, anything that moves or rotates, spray the parts that rub, okay? If it's a back ramp, you want to spray the hinges really well so that those are lubed and free and they're not binding up. For the dividers, I'm going to be lubricating the hinge side of the divider, and I'm going to be lubricating the latch mechanism. A lot of latches are sliding/slam, and most of those are going to have some sort of spring inside. In fact, we had a client reach out to us recently that has one of our trailers with a slam latch, and she was complaining that the latch had sort of bound up and was not sliding back and forth, and that the track where it slides seemed to be full of hay and debris or something. So obviously, number one, when you hose your trailer out, if you have some sort of track that hay and debris can get caught up in, you need to hose that out as well. And then number two, definitely apply some lubrication. Vaseline is your friend. Penetrating oil is your friend. Spray the hinge, spray the track. It will make things work so much better, I promise you. Camper doors, same thing. You have hinges, you have latches, you have locks. Even the sliding windows themselves, after they sit for a period of time, remember the rubber gasket, it goes through the summer. I mean, it can expand. Maybe it even melts a little bit to the window, so now it's stuck. And we have folks to reach out, and they're like, hey, the window's stuck, it will not move. And, I mean, it will move, but you have to move it. You have to put some elbow grease behind it. And if you can't do that, that's okay. Don't force it. Get a can of penetrating oil, some WD-40, spray down into the track where literally the rubber meets the glass, and it can free that up so that you'll be able to slide your window. Electrical, that would be something that when you take your trailer to the repair shop and a tech actually inspects that, and you can do this yourself. You just want to make sure all the lights function, your running lights, clearance lights. If you have an auxiliary battery system, make sure the battery is charged. Unfortunately, with batteries, as they sit, they tend to lose juice. And if you don't have a battery tender, which is something that is just going to help keep that battery charged at all times, what happens is as the power depletes from the battery, it sits for several months, it's not used, the charge is low, that's just going to really reduce the life of that battery. We have a lot of folks that their batteries are run completely dead, completely kerplunk, and then eventually they won't hold a charge, and we're scratching our heads saying, hey, what's wrong? Why isn't the battery charging? Well, they're like everything else. They have to be maintained. The more they sit, the more they're not used, the more they don't like it. So batteries really like to stay charged all the time. If you have a living quarter trailer and you're getting ready for fall, that's something that I personally would have taken to an RV company at the beginning of the season. I'm going to have those guys looking at my roof line to make sure that the roof doesn't need to be resealed. The fact that you don't have a leak doesn't mean that your roof doesn't need to be resealed. You don't wait until the shingles on the roof of your house wear completely out and water starts coming in through the kitchen before you change your shingles. You should, have the same mentality for your horse trailer, because guess what? Every single one of them, unless it's a one-piece fiber composite roof, which is, a technology that we use, and some others too, but most, probably 90+% of the trailers on the market, they're going to have some sort of petroleum-based product on the roof to seal that up. And as we've mentioned many times, sunlight and petroleum don't get along very well. And so the caulking type material, the sealant can dry, it becomes hard and brittle, and then it will eventually just break or leak. If you have a living quarter and you have water running in on top of the ceiling from a leak, you may have mold to deal with at some point. It just makes a mess. So a few dollars spent on preventive maintenance, making sure the roof is sealed and is in good condition. The air conditioner itself, the roof mount air, which is what most everybody has, it has a rubber gasket on top. And so the way that works is it's a square hole, it's 14 by 14 hole, and a gasket goes on top of the trailer. The roof sits on top of that, or the air conditioner, and then it bolts from the bottom side and sort of sandwiches that gasket in there. Again, over time, from just the moisture and heat and the cold air, the rubber itself is just going to fatigue and deteriorate. And so those gaskets need to be changed periodically, every probably 3 to 4 years. But an RV company could certainly check that for you and make recommendations as to how often to change. Because again, you don't want to wait until the thing starts leaking and you're at a ride and, oh my goodness, water's pouring on the floor, because then you've got a problem and a mess to deal with. The components that typically break on a living quarter, if it's a slide out, the circuitry board and electrical components, as the trailer sits outside in the weather and it's hot and it's cold and it's moisture, those can get a little bit of corrosion on them. So the slide itself needs to be lubricated and serviced, and most owners just don't have the knowledge to do that because we're not mechanics. So again, get it to a horse trailer place, get it to an RV center so that they can make sure that your slide has been serviced and ready to go. Refrigerators, they get dust on the burners. Most refrigerators are either 12 volt and propane, and as they sit over time, they won't light. So you'll definitely want to check those. Hot water system is the same. And of course, if you're prepping for storage, through the winter, once that hits, just remember, water freezes at 32 degrees. So if it gets cold enough and you have water in there, you're going to have some cracked lines. And make sure that you get all the water out. Use RV sealant or RV, I can't think of even what it's called now, antifreeze, RV antifreeze. Some of that you can put in the lines themselves. But my personal preference, I just like to get all the water out of the tank, out of the lines, out of the hot water. I leave the faucets open, then I don't have to worry about it. Throw a cover over the top of the trailer, and life is good through the winter time. And that's all I can think of for now. If you guys have more questions or feedback, certainly send those to us, and we'll be happy to answer those.